what's going on in UAP world reality?
Well, yeah, I'm just coping with everything that's happening around here. But it hasn't really affected my life personally, and that's a strange thing. You would think there would be people severely affected, and we talked about this just the other day, that yeah, it's I'm just kind of seeing like almost normal life going on, except for just a lot of the fluffy things that would be going on, keeping people busy, are just not happening.
Mm.
It's like the world's closing up shop. So I've had this project in mind that I was working on, and I put the first part out the other day that I told you about, the ELO album Time. It's a concept album of time travel, and so I'm having fun with that because it's kind of like going to the future and having this dystopian existence that you find, and you kind of want to go back to the past, back to 1981 from the year 2095, and basically the guy is seeing visions that are the songs, and it's like, is it real? Is it a dream? There's nothing that is in between. Well, that's kind of like what everybody's experiencing, I think. So I think it's a great time to put it out.
Yeah, what is this place? What is this place? Is it an illusion? Is it a dream? We're living in, our reality, we're living in a physical realm, but ourselves, us, the I, our spirits, even our minds, our thoughts exist in a non-physical realm. They are non-material. Our thoughts are non-material, and so is our spirit. Yet we exist in a avatar, if you like. Mm-hmm. So what's going on with that? And reality can be affected and changed because yourself, you approve that. Okay, this can be done. Can affect change in reality. Okay, and this has been proved. So that would mean that reality, in some way, is malleable through intent, through will, through positive intent, never doubting, and will, and it'll all just fall into place. So, there's a lot of ideas going around there, UAP. There's the simulation or the virtual reality, which actually explains everything. Including Mudflood, because it would explain every aspect. Flat Earth. It would explain how all these crazy anomalies going on with Mudflood, which I'll show you a couple of now, which are highly creepy when we look at it. Freak people out. Not though, but just saying. I was going through it, and I just started strangest feeling. Like something was really off, and I just touched upon it, and it was like, oops. And then the thought came in my head, and it was like, it just can't be. It's like almost as if the past wasn't there. It's just, like not like unrendered. It's just like it hasn't there. It's just not there. There's like, it seems to be two timelines of classical architecture. Okay, UAP in your civic buildings in America and here as well. Yeah, they have great marble columns, and they're made of marble. They are solid. These structures are amazing. Yet you get back to the actual classical world, okay, which is Rome, Greece, Constantinople, etc. You find that all of their monuments are hollow, look like they are all fake.
Right.
Yeah, so it's like there's two classical eras, and in the photography it shows you like something is really, really off. So I'll hopefully share some of that with you. See if you can shed some light on this, because I can't get my head around to UAP. It's something really off. Maybe the guys, when they're watching this, will see exactly what I mean.
Yeah. I put out a video about architecture that I'll share, because I actually, when I did the video, I had an architect kind of following along and validating, these things. It's like with all these conspiracies, I throw some stuff out there, like it just seems like this, and I'm going out on a limb and speculating based on the evidence, and not anything else, not what I've been taught is even possible. I just speculate.
Same.
And I wait for the pros to come and just dress me down with how wrong I am and how much proof there is to the contrary, and would I just shut up and stop it? If anything, I just have them come along and say, I am so glad somebody finally noticed outside of this industry where we can't talk about it, you know.
Yeah.
And it's all kinds of stuff with the architecture. And that video, I went back and researched the history. And so I'm reading what architects say to other architects in school about architectural history and timelines and periods and the classifications and the ways that they can tell the authenticity of something that is like retro or actual period work.
Yeah.
And there's no lines anywhere. There's not even blurred lines. There's just an arbitrary date of when it was believed to be built, before or after, that assigns it to this like category. And then if it really looks like something else, then it's like if it's after that time period, they just put the word neo in front of it.
Yeah, pretty vague, isn't it?
Yeah, it's totally arbitrary.
Yeah, it is.
Completely.
Can you see the screen? Can you share? I'm sharing the screen. Can you see it at all, UAP?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, that is the earliest collection of photographs I reckon available of Rome, and I'm just astounded. Actually, it's the classical world, so it's Rome, Athens, Pompeii, Greece, the Acropolis, Istanbul, that type of thing. But there's a lot of exactly the same overwhelming theme, actually, of what is going on and why is this this Roman monument here, right, made of cast. It's made of cast, UAP. What's going on? Now, it's full of stone, okay? You can see it's full of stone, can't you? And then it's cast over the top, so it's not real. It's not real. And you got this same hue we find all the time with the vanilla skies, this, I suppose, yellowish hue you find.
Sepia,
Yeah, with all of this money, these are supposed to be like 1860s. These photographs, they're really, really early, and you can still see the waterline. And this, this is supposed to be the classical world. Yet what you find is everything seems to be Lego, and you get big, really big giant blocks, etc. But it's really, really higgledy-piggledy and hollow looking. Honeycombs on this one, okay? So I thought, well, I've seen this overwhelming.
Wait. On this one, yeah, zoom in. Let's look at the scale of the people here. It's like I see this a lot. It looks like someone's photoshopped in or something. I don't know.
We're going to see that now. Do you know what? Look at the sky behind. It's just been cropped. It's been cropped. They're hiding whatever it is. Okay, you can see this now. This is Paris in the basically the Franco-Prussian War, 1871. Loads of cities have gone up. Boston's gone up the same year, but it's exactly the same thing.
Yeah,
it's showing these just old stone with cast all around it. I thought, what's going on? What it's like this entire fake reality going on here.
Well, when you say cast, what are you talking about?
Cast.
It's that kind of. It's kind of a.
Yeah, I worked in stonemasonry, okay, UAP, and when it's a beautiful craft, absolutely love it, but stone got to breathe, okay. This is not stone. This is cobble, okay, crudely coupled together in an outside cast of something like just concrete or
but it's not concrete though.
Look,
it's isn't it kind of a, it's kind of a white, kind of the soft stone, similar to like what they make these really fine statues out of, that they say is carved out of a monolith, but it's not. It's like a almost like a plastic that somehow gets turned into stone.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
And then you also see evidence of it melting. Like even there, it almost looks like some of that debris.
It is. It's just all of these on here just seem like there's been melting. This is the the planet. Look at this. This is classical world. This is like it's It seems like something's just come in from above, smashed it, hit it, and just fragmented it. In fact, it looks like it's coming from this direction, and it's hit it on this corner where this, this statue is here, like that way, But this is Paris, just note that, right? This is Paris, 1871, and watch what miraculously happens when the whole city, as you can see, is not too good. It's demolished, and you can see this is the same thing going on in Europe. It's like it's just crazy. And
and the oh, go ahead.
No, just saying, look, it's just stone. It's been covered over to give it the appearance of a classical world. Is what I'm suggesting. It's almost like the stage set UAP, like like they've just done a big Shakespearean stage set or something, or even that, it's not even there at all. Look at these backgrounds. It's just, where's the people?
Yeah.
Where's the sky?
Yeah, the sky's never there. They say, oh, well, it's the exposure. And I went back, and I have found so many examples of where you can see it's not even like cut paper, but it's like ripped paper. I think they purposely rip the paper so that it has kind of a transitional edge.
Yes.
And then it has like, they lay the pieces over and they do this double exposure, so they overexpose the sky to hide all the good stuff.
Exactly what I find.
And they also expose in other images, and you can tell the outlines. And then I've seen where they've exposed or airbrushed, somehow smudged sometimes, or inked out certain people who tend to be giants.
Exactly what I found. Exactly what I found. I'll show you an example of that now anyway, but that is not a real shot, UAP. Just work out, right? This is supposed to be taking down a part of the San Francisco exposition, okay, the tower, which is hollow, looks like it's made of plasterboard, and this is supposed to be what they did, collapse it, okay? I don't see any explosion. I'm not sure they collapsed it, but you check where the trajectory of that is going to fall. There's nowhere for it to fall. It's just going to drop and hit this building or hit these towers, and these blokes are standing here. I don't think that's a reality. I think that's somehow faked.
Yeah,
like
because it's an action shot.
It's an action shot.
And they tell us that Abe Lincoln had to sit in a chair with screws screwed in to hold his head exactly still, and his picture is still blurry. It's like, and that's the president they're doing a portrait of, and yet the same years they can get these action shots of these things.
Well, this being 100% whitewashed is creepy, because I've got a few of these, right? They're gentlemen in cats, if you can call them that. It's been completely whitewashed out. There's a line here, and if you can see, that's exactly what you were just talking about, UAP. The white has actually come down into the underbit, proving that they're blacking out whatever's in the background.
Right.
So we don't see it.
There are a few times that I found where they, how like they have a complex structure and there's a gap. And I zoomed in on the gap to see, what are they hiding? And you know what I saw?
Go on.
I saw complex architectural structures that had no top. Like there was a very tall gap between buildings. And I followed it up, and I could see in the background there was something that would have been like Saint Peter's Basilica or something, going all the way up until the vanilla sky picked it up, and it cut off all of a sudden. And so there it was. What city was it? I don't remember the city. It was kind of like Irkutsk or something. Maybe it was that one. But one of these like unmentionable cities that most people have never heard of, and it had huge, tall, multi-story. It must have been like 5-story for like 20-foot tall people, that kind of huge. And it was completely otherwise just wiped out. And supposedly it's just, oh, that's just sky. And so many times I've checked the horizon, and the horizon is artificially low, as if we lived on a globe. Ha! Yeah, right. because we know, I mean, we know how to look for that.
Mhm.
And we know where the horizon has to be, unless
Yeah.
it's an extremely foggy day and they happen to be on top of a hill. But I was going through a bunch of photos and I'm like, here they are on top of a hill. Oh, they're on top of a hill again. Oh, they're on top of a hill. No trees, nothing in the background, no mountains, hills, anything. Yeah. And these towers, what do you think about these towers, Martin? They all have these circles supposedly for clocks, and I'm not buying it.
Well, I think there's a big clue with this picture. This is one of the Shroppy images of Charleston in the American Civil War. And it says on Shroppy, this is from 1865. So this is not long after its bombardment, okay, UAP. Yet what we're seeing is, would you think that all of this growth and all of this mess, like weeds grown in the street, this stuff takes for a long time. Like the whole thing is covered in vegetation, suggesting to me that this, whatever destruction has happened here, has been associated with the American Civil War, has happened at an earlier time, from what I can see in that picture. Look how long and high these weeds are, and they're dried back. This is years of growth, UAP. This can't be.
Yeah.
Stick with their narrative. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. Just like when you showed the San Francisco exhibition,
Mm.
I found the evidence of the whitewashing
Mm.
where it was obviously very old. It's the problem they have right now in Washington, D.C., that there's this kind of black mold that grows on the outsides of the buildings. And it just, because it's this bright white stone that
Okay.
you've talked about,
Yeah.
and they all use that.
Mm.
And it just absolutely is uh, eventually covered with like kind of a patina. It's very obviously aged. If it was brand new, they wouldn't have to whitewash it. And I could
Oh.
see in these aerial type photos, or they were higher shots from the tops of these extremely tall buildings that are just in the exhibition to be torn down.
Mm.
I mean, they're like 150, 300 feet in the air. And they're taking the photo panorama, and you can see where the whitewashing just had to stop
Mm.
because nobody was going to see that part of the building. And then you can see the age. And it
I
was
get it.
evident in the last photo too. Just the
I,
age, just the fact that it's not just a little bit old, but it's very old.
I
Those
agree
buildings.
completely. I'm wondering what's going on. They just like there's just it's looking like the city, the cities and all these destructions are, temporary or just really crudely built when it's supposed to be classical. All of the photography is having whitewashed backgrounds. This is Gardner, who's the first war correspondent photographer in history. He went to the American Civil War, and this is in the Crimean War. And they've just taken away the background, so you don't see what's there. And
Right.
it's that same thing going on, that phasing out. It's
Hmm.
it's really peculiar. This one
And
jumps
and
out.
and let me guess. I
Hey.
don't know this for a fact, but the Crimean War
Hmm.
had I call it the Crimean River War, but they had one official photographer, probably.
Gardner, him, Scotsman. Yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah,
he's like the government photographer. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I'm wondering who's taking that photograph, because he must have had an assistant with him or something, or he must have had
Well,
a timer.
well, yeah, yeah. I found that this Maharaja in an 1856 crystal clear high def 4K photo took a selfie. He must have had a timer, and he's sitting cross-legged. There's no wire, there's nothing like that, and it's just a perfect photo. And he's he's looking like the bad guy from the Indiana Jones Temple of Doom movie. He's got all the makeup, all the stuff going
Yeah.
on, and he's sitting cross-legged on the floor. And it's got to be the very first 1856. It's got to be the very first photo, one of the first photos in India, right? But
Yeah.
it's he does it by himself basically, and he has an artificial backdrop, just like all of these like staged photos. If they don't whitewash it like you showed, they have this like a old, I don't know if you have like these maybe 10, 20 years ago, these photographers. Here we have you know, you could go to Walmart and get it done, but like a family photo, and they have the artificial backdrops that you can choose from. Well, they had all that in 1856. It's just odd. It's really odd because why would they start that way?
Hmm.
And it's always present. All these portraits, you know, you'd think it'd be easier to take the photo outside,
Oh
and you
yeah.
would have, yeah.
Yeah,
You take it outside, you have
I've
the
noticed
natural light,
it just
and you
makes
want
no
to
sense.
capture as much as you can in this very important photograph. Capture history, you know, capture as much as you can. You wouldn't whitewash things. You wouldn't use artificial backgrounds.
Hmm. No, can you see that photograph?
Yeah.
You know, it's supposed to be the Paris Exposition. It's supposed to
Yeah.
be built during all that time, but look at the trees and look at the scale. You know,
It
this
look
thing's
it looks sunken.
it looks sunken, all right. It looks like half of it is missing. It's always top heavy, you know, disproportionate. You find this with all of this era. It's so identifiable too, isn't it? Here's another one for you. I mentioned when we had a chat yesterday.
Mhm.
Somebody in the photographs I showed on my last vlog of Paris said, "What was all in pallets against the wall, Matt? They never had pallet trucks. In fact, the first mobile crane British Rail used in 1947. So what are they using?"
Yeah.
But you can see this giant crane here. But look at this with the pallets to bring
Are
it up to
those?
level, to street
Wow.
level. How deep is this going if you're going to do that? And this is street level up here. This is like how deep the sub basement goes. It's like 50
Mhm.
foot or something. Oh,
Yeah.
sure, that's a crazy image. That is
Well,
absolutely crazy.
that, you know, that picture is to me very representative of the typical construction photos that I find from this era, of these early days.
Hmm.
These construction sites are abysmal messes.
God, yeah.
Any mediocre job foreman would absolutely kick everybody's ass for having such a messy, sloppy work site. And they're all like that because it's cleanup. It's post disaster. Oh, that looks melted to me.
Well, that's exactly why I'm showing it. Or what's going on? You know, this is like apart from it's mud flooded because like a third of this is below the ground level here. Um, if at first I thought, oh, there was bas reliefs over them and they've just, you know, come off in the flood or something, but they're still on here. But when you look underneath, it's that same crude concrete work or, you know, Roman cement work with the volcanic ash, I suspect, or whatever, or is vitrified and melted because that's what it looks like on this one,
Hmm.
or runs, or what have you.
Yeah.
Highly weird.
It's amazing. Now, stay on this one for a minute because
Yeah.
usually they block out the writing,
Hmm.
and this definitely looks well. It looks Latin, but then it almost
No, I
huh.
can see some of it. I can see pompous. I can see, you know, I can see it make out a few words there of Latin, but
Mhm.
it's that same, you know, what they call Roman, but it's Phoenician, isn't it? You know, I'm starting to, you know, I've looked at so much of it over the last 5 years or more. You know, for years before that actually. I'm starting, you know, just it's so very similar to British or English or French or German. You know, it's all. You know, we've been studying languages quite a long time now with all of this. I'm getting to identify what a lot of it's saying, which emperor was in at the time, and
Mhm.
that's it with them.
Now
But
with
yeah,
the numerals and the years, I've seen some odd things with that where they had a different nomenclature for the Roman numerals for
yeah,
counting
yeah,
the years.
I've seen it too. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
crazy.
because they break the rules, and it lends to that sentiment that it is a staged reality where something's off because you
Oh,
wouldn't make such of a massive monument and then go and not follow the numbering rules and mess that up and have four C's in a row, you know, unless that was acceptable at the time, but I'm not aware of that. I don't study it enough to know for sure,
you
but I
know,
believe that you wouldn't do that. You would have,
oh,
you know, typically you don't have four of any of the Roman numerals lined up, unless it would be 4,000. Correct me if I'm wrong, but
I think it's almost as if we're looking at two separate times, or even if it's not even there. You know, like a staged reality. This is back to the Paris Exposition. Only a few years after it's completely destroyed, right? Oh yeah, a lot of text going on. But you know, on battleships, UAP, and they have them arrays on the decks in these day and age. You just like, don't they look like them? The domes.
Yeah, the onion dome.
Yeah,
Yeah,
very similar, aren't they?
yeah, and
Wondering if
these.
there's some mind control going on with these domes and these people.
Well, go back, because I've done that photo too,
Yeah,
and these guys in the foreground. Yes, they're in the foreground, but there's something obviously different about them,
no kidding.
and it's their height,
Hmm.
and also I've noticed I think they're the old world. I think they're the last of the original people,
Yeah.
possibly that they tend to be of much greater stature.
Mm.
They seem to be of greater importance. And to
Look,
me,
yeah,
it's
everyone's
I
looking
have a
at them. Look at the
everyone looks at
lady.
them.
Yeah,
Absolutely. They
yeah,
all
like
look
a
at them.
fascination of them.
Yeah.
And that
And
guy's like gawping, isn't he? He's like,
yep.
what's going on? And
Yeah.
look at
And
that headway, UAP. It's almost as like they're from another reality and they've just arrived in
yeah.
this place.
Yeah. I think that they may be cone heads.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
also, I know it's funny, but also they often have their faces covered or blurred. And then I've also noticed that I have a sense that they are saying goodbye. They're leaving to go somewhere else.
Oh, oh, like look, having a last look at their world.
Yeah.
I'm getting that. I'm getting that.
And the people know it, or maybe not very well.
No, these guys look like they're the arrivals. They're the tourists. They're the
Yeah.
ones going looking at this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. These three, it's like they're saying sayonara, and yeah, they're kind of old world. Like their
Oh,
shoes, they're a little
I know, I
different.
know. I know the shoes are just everything. It's completely different about them.
And look at the
There's a ladder,
feet. Those feet
UAP,
are bigger.
ladder, ladder.
Oh, ye olde Letterline, yes. They have them all the time because
Yeah, they do.
because they had to. These buildings don't have stairs. They have to use a ladder to get sometimes just to get up onto these balconies and different places. Because I always go to the stairs. I try to see that to see like the stature of the people. I did a study on stairs, and I found that it was funny. I always go back to the year 1850. Like everything began in the year 1850. Did you
Okay.
know they didn't figure out the proportions, the optimal proportions for stairs until 1850? Until
No,
1850,
no.
every stairs were different. You had, like, like, uh, like in your country, you have the
Mm.
um, servant steps that are way steeper, and you can break your ankles and all this kind of stuff.
Right.
It just doesn't seem like, it's regulated obviously now, but there's some of them left. But the the time period of about 1850, supposedly they were all different, and it's
That place is fantastic. Why the hell would they get rid of it? If Paris looked like that, why isn't it like you now? All of that gone, UAP. Does that make sense to you?
no, no, it never did, and it's something that they
Fantastic.
did over and over again. And then the later World's Fairs are so lame by comparison. I think they were actually doing what they claimed to be doing,
Yeah.
and and it really didn't seem the same as the early ones that were, I think, completely different. Yeah.
Hmm. Well, that's
Yeah.
Paris. Same vanilla sky going on. And, it's the classical worlds in Paris. All of, this is Rome, but you've got the Marvel thing going on, yeah. Can't verify what's underneath them. I'm guessing that's still there in the modern day. Well, exactly the same top as you get in the Brandenburg Arch in Germany, just proving that these people were all on the same side, really.
Yeah.
They're
And
really,
those and there's arches. There's nothing innate about having a triumphal arch. There's nothing to gain by it. And I was watching one of your vids, and I saw I love this comment you made about maybe they're kind of like metal detectors because
Yeah.
the armies went out. I did a vid on electric nights, you know, the electrified warfare and the
Yeah,
demonstrations that they
definitely.
have.
Yeah.
And I used this photo that I discovered from watching one of your videos with the electrical swords shooting the lightning bolts
Yeah, from the
in
Nuremberg.
Germany.
Yeah,
Yes,
Nuremberg. Yeah, it's amazing.
and it was. And did you notice in that photo that some of the people are giants and some of them
Yeah,
aren't?
yeah, yeah, they are. Yeah, it's just
Oh yeah,
I've got it on my wall in my bedroom, UAP. I absolutely love
yeah.
it. Yeah, yeah, I got a frame of
It is awesome. Yeah.
it. Yeah, printed it off. Look at this double decker thing here. You're telling
Yes.
me one horse, Lee Flat of British Sub mentioned this. Some of these things are 8 ton. I'm just not sure whether this little pony could pull off that even on rails. Maybe if he gets a little bit of momentum going, who knows? They must be
Yeah.
just like half dead when they get to the end of the street or something.
Well, I've seen the motors, and some of them they're very small, like
Yeah, I've
electric
seen them.
motors.
Yeah, I've got pictures of them. I could show you that. Yeah, and they seem to be, they're not connected with anything. They're anomalous, but they could be just picking up a charge from, the free energy that's kicking around Tesla style back in the day. So you seem to have a bit of a population going on, yeah.
Oh, they're moving in.
They're moving in, all
It's
right.
what you often see. Well, I don't know in that picture, but yeah. Whoa, what's going on back there? It's like a blurry circle below the clock.
I think it's just a tree. No, I don't think it is. I don't really know. How we can get in on that. Excuse me. No, it's a blur of some sort, like a cigarette burn or something, just
Hmm.
obscuring that. That's one hell of a Italian building. It's got the towers, the clock in the middle, the whole thing.
They all have their antennas, which are exactly in proportion to what you see on top of fire stations
Yeah.
these days. You know, for the local communications radio, uh, that's probably exactly that.
Ooh, that thing there. Well, it looks like
Um,
it's melted on top or something. It doesn't even look like it's got any definition. And we can't imagine what's going on with that tower. Looks completely out of place.
clouds are coming in or something.
Oh, sure, maybe it's that hot.
Yeah.
But look at that
Oh,
thing.
yeah.
That's
Those.
absolutely fantastic, that one. I love it. Look at her. I'm not sure what's her head where she's got on, but she's got like two horns.
Yeah, they did that. Yeah, that's a 15th century style or 15th. Yeah, I think that's 15th century. It's medieval. Um,
What's the real age of photography, UAP? Because I could show you a picture now, and it's not just a camera obscura, it's a camera, and it's showing cine pictures to people in the Middle Ages. I've got a couple of
oh
these,
yeah,
you know,
yeah. I found the same
camera
type of
obscura.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So what's
absolutely.
the real age of photography? I'm thinking some things we could be looking at the ancient world, like back there, could be
Hmm.
actually in the ancient world.
Yeah,
They could play these stage sets over and over again, bringing out the styles over and over again, replicating the dates over and over again, and they're putting them out
yeah,
for humanity to see, and that's what we're not picking up on. It's like you're telling me they got rid of all that. Yeah, this was only
yeah.
100 years ago, and
Right.
then everything you see is like the best as the quality. It's just
Yeah,
crisp. Look at the qual. Look at a shell, Phoenician shell, and the plasma eyeball on the light. Oh wow! There
yeah.
can't
And
be
it
stuff.
would lens it, and it would put out a beautiful array of light on
Yeah,
the street, and it'd just be gorgeous, and it would glint, and it'd just be spectacular. And
fantastic.
they just throw it away, dump it in the river or something, and
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And put up a nasty old tower block. Yeah, it's just no. There's something clearly else going on. Something else going on. That up on the hill there as well. So the Acropolis. So that's
mm,
the old world there, and you can see this any city. Look at the population when they arrive here.
right. And have elevated streets and
Yeah,
railways for
yeah,
crying out loud.
yeah.
And it's the horse and buggy pulling it.
Oh, I'm
I
going to show
found
you.
that in Germany, the Wuppertaler Wuppertaler Railway, which is that hanging train, the Schwebebahn.
I'm not sure I've seen that one.
The
Oh yeah,
swinging train.
Seen it. Yes, yes, yes. Now I know. Yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah, and it's got a sordid history of like construction starts and stops and things like that. And that's definitely old world.
See this thing on the top of the tower here? It's not there in the modern day, but I got a photo of it close up, and it's just a big coil on top of a big coil on top of a big coil going smaller. I can't see it on that one. I can see it a bit better now. Huge cable coming down. I got a close up of it. It's not there in the modern day. They got rid of all that, the tech on that tower. You know, I'm really, really dodgy with these photographs. I just don't know what to think about any of the past anymore. Honestly, there's so much been hidden. We're finding so much fakery, so much, you know, just obscured from our reality. You know, what's that tower there on top of the tower there?
Wow, look at that.
Well, what do you think it is?
Wait. On the right side, that's the original spire.
Yeah, like it was put there, right? But it says in the narrative when it got burnt down, you know, now they're putting, you know, an APRE, etc. But it looks like an aerial there. It's went up in 1850s, and I got, you know, pictures of this thing being put up. Yet, I've got like really old maps when that thing's in place. So that's a lie too. Oh, excuse me. There's all cobble there. They're just laying the cobble at this period. I think that, you know, it
like
would be.
They had dirt roads before that, or what?
Well, this is on top of the catacombs, isn't it? You know, that's how you get to them underneath this square. Yeah, this is on the Citadel in Paris, a little tiny island in the Seine, and they appear to just be putting the cobble down for some reason. Yeah.
So the thing about this, if the previous civilization were found completely dead, they had so many, maybe they, I don't know. Because it seems like if they could cause the mud flood to just do it as a kind of a wipe after the fact, I don't know. Yeah, I go back and forth with some of the things. Like sometimes I'm certain that it's antediluvian, and then other times I think that's done on purpose by men who are currently in control. You know, the same people.
I've been suspicious all along, but you know, this hollow past, this hollow history is bugging me because, you know, like two amazing types of classical architecture we can experience in the modern day. Yet when you look at Rome, you know, I got that collection I just showed you the first, you go through it all, and the Minoan Empire or the Byzantine Empire, doesn't matter what you're looking at, and it's classical theme. But when you dig underneath, it's, don't get me wrong, some of this is a huge, you know, megalithic structures, but they are all like fake, like higgledy-piggledy, like, you know, just not the similar quality that you experience. Look like this.
Right, and it's bricks. It's a lot of times it's bricks. You
know,
all the way down.
Shit workmanship. You know, I've worked in stonemasonry. You know, this is just really crude, covered to make it look better. Why would they do that?
But what even happened to it?
Well, this is the thing, right? You know, do you know them pokey little cannons here, right? So you got this war happening with Russia, with the Germans, which are Prussia. This war set up Germany. If this war hadn't happened, Germany wouldn't be here today, right? So they've had a war with the French. Okay, they've taken, you know, different cities. They got a siege going on where the occupants. Now this is what I can't get my head around, right? UAP. They say in the narrative, right, that the occupants, the communards, etc., of this city were reduced to eating rats and mice. And when the dogs and cats had run out, there was mass starvation in this city, right? And it gets completely destroyed. With the little pokey cannons are supposed to be doing this, turning buildings into dust thing going on that you keep experiencing. It's ridiculous. Look at this. Look at this, you know, for pokey little cannons. This is really, you know, granity structures, solid structures. It just makes no sense at all to my head.
And the cannons themselves are just unwieldy beasts. You can't. They're horrible. Articles of war. To get it up the slightest incline in those days would have been a monumental task and not worth the effort. Not worth the effort, in my opinion. It's just
I would
it's a
say
ridiculous thing. I know a lot of people diverge when I say, like, I think cannons are not at all
see,
what they say they were, because I went and looked to find a video of an actual firing of one of these classic cannonballs, like, the size of a bowling ball or a
yeah,
soccer ball, that size of cannonball.
yeah,
First of all, I always thought they were solid, like, to maximize them, but they're hollow balls. But even being hollow iron balls,
yeah.
how do they
Mate, do
make
you know
them?
what?
But
No,
whatever,
no, it's not.
with
It's something else.
extremely heavy.
They're energy weapons or something else. I think what
Yeah.
I say with cannons for me, right, is the human cannonball. They don't set the trajectory or the power in the cannon. They stick a human in there with a motorcycle helmet on there, and they shoot him out of a cannon, and he catches on the other end of the football field in a net. So
Hmm.
that is the sort of power out of these big cannons, and they're shooting a ball. You can visibly see it's not moving at like light speed or anything. You can visibly see these things, and then
Hmm.
it's supposed to be the kinetic combustive wave that causes the damage you're looking at there. Doesn't fit with me. That looks
No.
like nukes were a thing, that a load of heat and energy had hit that at one time. The whole thing, everything in that photograph is just zapped
Hmm.
one time. Because that's apocalyptic destruction for pokey little cannons of the mid-Victorian era, which is what they say. But you don't see none of this
Yeah.
action going on, there's no battles, it's always after. And you get
Oh
these,
yeah.
this, like, this is
There's
recent.
no the first actual, like, supposedly actual action shot
Mm,
is obviously a staged battle. It's a LARP, live action role play. It's got
mm.
two sides, and they're facing off in like a muddy field, and they're lined up, and it's
Do you think
absolute.
cannonballs could turn all of this stone and this exterior of the stone into what you see as black dust, which it looks like it's all vitrified together? Do you think a
Mhm.
cannonball could do that? Because I really don't. And not even a conventional fire with that, the heat wouldn't do that.
Right.
I really don't think so. Look at that.
Well, I got something that'll
Wow.
blow your mind, but it'll take me a minute. But
Okay.
I'll send it to you and when I get to it. But we'll keep that thought, because I have an answer that'll just absolutely. Oh
Have you
man.
seen this thing?
Um, that's a railway.
It's
No, I.
not just a railway station, right? This thing is a mind blower, right? It's called the Canfranc International Station. I've done a bit of research on it.
Oh
This thing,
yes,
mind blow.
yes.
It's in the
That's the
Pyrenees.
longest building in the world,
It's
supposedly,
the
right?
longest building in the world. You got
I.
it. It's mind blowing. Do you
Yeah.
know what? They stuck it in a valley that's prone to avalanches. The freezes over much of half the year, right? Apparently, this is a really bad place. And when I show you the narrative, there it is. Look, all now in the modern day, it's just abandoned. They left it. For what reason do you
Sure.
think? It's just. Oh, and I've also been researching Guernica, because part of this narrative for this station is, right, which is insanity to me, right, is it goes through the Pyrenees. It was opened in 1928, okay, and it's like 365 windows, etc. So what was this point? Found this mind-blowing video, right, UAP, and it says this on it. It's about the Canfranc International Station. So it's a for transmitting passengers, baggage and freight between Spanish and French trains, because the French railway, okay, was different gauge. So in France, it's narrow gauge, or it's just a different gauge. Now that
Hmm.
don't ring true. I think what we've stumbled upon here, right, is like these selection railway stations for getting rid of some people, is what I think. And I'll tell you why now, because I was been researching the Spanish Civil War and Guernica, which is when you research Guernica, the only two in comparison with it, okay, for bombardment and death toll are Dresden and Hiroshima. I shit you not. This is
Hmm.
in the Spanish Civil War. So they are bringing out people of the Basque region, okay, which I suspect are Tatarians, okay, because these people are not in the Phoenician, thing at all. They've always not been part of it, okay? And they're bringing huge amounts of people here into this place, which is massive. I mean, you know, they got all these things, but they look like stables. It's like almost as if they're putting people in them. And this thing's out. Why did they put it in a place out in the middle of nowhere? Which is why they closed it, UAP. Oh, and they had to disembark them here, okay, because the train tracks going into France were a different size, and they put the station in the coldest, most inhospitable place. And this Sunport Tunnel is one of the longest tunnels on Earth. Yeah, this thing should show curvature if it was a thing. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll show you how long it goes for now. There you are. This tunnel is 7,875 meters, 25,000 foot in length. And I bet you could see a dot of light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
I bet you any money there's no curvature on that thing.
Gravitational lensing.
Yeah, they bent the light, UAP. I don't think Einsteinian gravity is applicable on Earth's surface, but who knows? Will it? But yeah, this thing's anomalous, man, and you know it's closely tied in with the Spanish Civil War, which is mind-blowing itself. You've got to ask yourself, why are they cleaning out, you know, huge areas of Spain? Why are so many people dying? Look at this thing. To me, it's a disembark station, right? They're getting people out, they're selecting them, and something else clearly is going on here. The narrative for, you know, the different gauges, and yet they closed it down because it's avalanchy, it's inhospitable, they get the most stinking weather imaginable, and events like mudslides and stuff. Yeah, does that make sense? This stuff just falls away in it. No, I know. And it's spoiling Tatarian. Is that tunnels? Yeah, it might be. That would be interesting if it had tunnels underneath. Indeed, it has. What's that? The site includes a large locomotive depot, 2 sheds. Okay, so they had them things with depots, huge depots. So I'm not believing the narrative on that. There's something else clearly going on, okay, with that building, and I'll show you why now. Because they get people after this bombing at Guernica, which is one of the worst bombings in history, apparently. The Basques are taken on railway, a lot of them, and they're put through this area, which the only way to France from the north is through the Pyrenees. And yeah, they got to stop off in this place, which is a disembarking change bullshit place. It's just, I think, that place is closed down because I think there was something else big time nasty going on with it. So yeah, the Luftwaffe, the German Luftwaffe, way before World War II, 1937, yeah, they literally bombed the shit out of Guernica, okay, for Franco. So the British don't do nothing. They don't declare war on the Germans, yet the Germans have done this to a Tatarian city. This city looked like Dresden. This city was out of this world. Yeah, same thing. They say for the bombs that were dropped compared to the amount of people, like I said, the only ones that compare are Dresden and Hiroshima in the narrative. So yeah, Guernica is a definite key. What the fuck is this? Luftwaffe, 10 King Sentry bombs. They did 1936. So it was well before World War II. The Luftwaffe were destroying cities in Europe. You know, this thing was painted by Picasso, Guernica. These are supposed to be like the people in the streets, you know, and this is depicting the horror that's supposed to have happened at Guernica. It was like a bit of a nightmare.
Well, what I find is if you go back to the verifiable history of any city that's bombed, that they knew ahead of time when it would be bombed and they evacuate it.
Yeah, I agree completely. Yeah.
It's more akin to like what's going on now where the government tells you you have to do this, or, you know, like, or else, you know, and people just comply and don't question how they could even know. And they just go do it. And if anybody's going to stay, you know, then there's some carnage. But other than that, it's just, it's not a huge loss of life. But then, you know, afterwards, like the cities were mostly empty all along. When you go back into the 1800s, most of the cities are overbuilt for the number of people that they have.
Oh, for definite.
And yeah, and I find that they just have districts, you know, and the people are just brought up seemingly for generations already at that point. That
established money as well. Established money, you know, like what you find with the Winchesters and stuff. You know?
It's all it's all society run, and then they have like a district that's always like blocked off with this tall fence, and it's just nobody, you don't even look at it. You don't talk. I could just tell the sentiment that they have about it, that that district is off limits. You don't go there, you don't talk about it, you don't even look at it. It's just forget about it. You can't buy land there. It's just fenced off, and that's what they're probably photoshopping out with the white skies and everything. That looks like a like a jet trail up there, but I don't know what.
Well, that line there.
Yeah.
It doesn't it? It might be just a photograph. These are old. These are just LA, but at this stage, there's hardly anyone around, and it looks like Tataria, and the city's apparently only 40 years old at this stage. But
Well, go back and look at that. There was an object at the end. I mean,
where?
I haven't been looking at UFOs in a long time, but that caught my eye. Zoom in on that on the jet trail, like what's producing it.
Oh yeah. Oh, I got it. It's like a little thing at the beginning of it, and then a little
Yeah.
white line. And there's another one there as well.
Mm-hmm. It's like a TR-3B.
Listen, UFOs, as you know, UAP are not off the table for me. I've had
No.
experiences, and I've seen plenty. Me and my wife seen one the size of Wembley Stadium, and that's a fact. Like I could have thrown a stone at it, UAP. It was that close. Look at this tech on the roofs of LA.
Yeah.
These towers to get up into the stronger or the more powerful electrostatic charge. This is why they all go so high. But look at this thing. Look at this city. It's established. It's old. LA is a mind blow, I reckon, for Mudflood. All of the all of America is, but this red granite style as well. Solid.
Yeah. Yeah. Many universities built like that. So yeah.
And it's so, with the four clock towers, I think they were replaced.
Right.
I think they were something else at some stage as well. And
Well, I
they,
have kind of an idea of what it might be. There are two possibilities. Yeah, see those. One possibility is that it may have been like a clock every other one. That would make more sense. Oh, there's a balloon. Go back.
Wait.
Well, on the bottom left, pictured.
Oh, yes. Nicely spotted. I can't mag up more. There's a picture of an air balloon there, yeah. Oh, isn't that interesting?
Huh.
How deep this mud is.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's no need to
they,
cut that away.
but the devices they had in there, I think. See, there's more clocks like above it. Like, why would you do that? They were.
I've seen it in my city
portals.
too. I'm wondering about the clocks and the 4 clocks. I know, all right, it's facing 4 directions, exactly, etc. But the replacements and this clock in Cincinnati as well. There's another one I seen in, I can't pronounce Spokane. Is it Spokane? Is that how you pronounce it?
Spokane.
Yeah,
Spokane.
Yeah, another beautiful city, with the architecture like this, or Portland, and another city like Portland, and all of these.
Yeah, they're everywhere. In a small town in Ohio, there's one that is facing out like a pretty close to a wall. Like it couldn't have been a clock. Absolutely could not have been a clock. And one of them I saw was a church in New York City that they burnt, and the flames coming out of it, that was insane. I mean, it was like a enormous blowtorch just blasting flame out at just an unbelievable amount of combustion and orange flame just blasting out like a blast furnace. I can't imagine how it could have been like that, but it's in a video, Burnt History.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those dome things, the onions again. But that one's got like serrated in it, like it's tile overlay, what have you. But it looks the same sort of thing, doesn't it? There's an array or one of those weapons. What is that pole? What you notice, UAP as well, right, with these old photographs is they know plumb lines, yeah, they don't seem to be able to put a telegraph pole up straight. They're all really wonky. What's going on with that? There's two sorts. You've got the free energy ones, which are just beautifully lined up. And you've got these other ones with a telegraph on, which are all just, they can't put a plumb line on them. It's just these things. These are always crooked and put up really crudely.
Look at that one. It's just janked up there because they had it stacked. They didn't bury the pole. They just stacked up sandbags or something. It was in the other photo.
Oh, the one just further back. Excuse me. Okay.
I remember if it was back or forward. Yeah, there. See, they just piled on the base of it.
All right. Shit.
Just to hold it up. It's not permanent, or it's just they don't know how to drive a pole down. They don't have the equipment or something, or post hole digger or whatever.
Doesn't look like there's anything on it either. There's no wires on it.
Yeah, that's staged. Like when they have these, like the building on the left is what they'll have you believe that they use. Look at the base of that.
Do you know?
It's just the very bottom. It has no foundation.
Exactly. It looks staged. It really does. Look, why does, they taught us all the way through school and our childhood about the Wild West. Yeah. And this is how it was. But in the reality, in all of these places, like, for example, this one here, which is supposed to be in the Wild West days, you've got huge cities with skyscrapers. They don't ever show you that. Maybe in Gone with the Wind, they'll show a bit of Atlanta with masonry buildings, but I can't think of any other cowboy film where they show you what the world actually looked like back then.
Right. Yeah, the Wild West is complete.
This is what it looked like. And they're not
or even more so, yeah. I mean, they had the huge skyscrapers there.
Excuse me.
Pretty early on in the 1880s. Oh yeah.
How old is that? and the beauty of it is it's a mosque, isn't it? Yes, in LA, and I've got pictures of mosques in St. Louis, and this is the Moorish Tatarian feel, etc. And it's
and it's true in modern Tataria that it's Christians and Muslims living side by side in peace and harmony. It's always, I think it's been that way all around. Oh yeah, that
top of that tunnel railway thing. Yeah.
That
Angel Stairs.
They, in the World's Fair, they had something like that with a box on the end of it, and it was lit up, and they were moving people around in it. Just kind of, it was like a cherry picker.
Yeah.
Like a fair ride type thing, and just swinging people around in it. Probably pretty fast. I know the film was sped up, but even if you slowed it down to regular speed, it was pretty fast. These homes were everywhere in like LA and San Francisco, and they just knocked them all around.
You can see this place is established, for them to claim. These photos are from the LA Water Board, and they're, quite early, but are they laying them down or are they already there? I'm not sure.
Look at how clean how that's dug out. That's so
right. So they're supposed to be laying water pipes, so you would have one big one. Well, what are all these different tubes? It's just I've been wondering what it's for. I don't think they say it's water, but it's almost as if cables are going through these or something. It's crazy.
Well, what I found about the
got one there.
Look at the scale too. Like, I don't know, something's off about it, but
something's off. I can feel that as well. I can feel that.
The undersea cables that supposedly run, transatlantic, which we know pretty much runs along the land, but the reason that they ran them a little bit off from the straightest possible line when I was researching it.
Yeah.
In 1856, I think they started laying it using the Great SS Great Eastern.
Oh yeah, that's right. Well, it was Brunel's great ship, but I'm not buying that either.
No, it's a joke.
It's supposed to have ended its life, on the Mersey near Liverpool in the mud. After this it was down to it wasn't cost effective on coal. It's a bit like Concorde's not a cost.
Right, and after all of this, it had cabins supposedly to carry 4,000 people. Yeah. I did a video on that one. It was a maiden voyage. Yeah. The enormous one-of-a-kind steam engine blew up. It's so massive. It's got the most capacity, and they were just taking it up to speed, and still, it just, it blew up.
Yeah, I posted about it a while ago when they were trying to basically get it to go into the river in the first place with these humongous chains for giants. He died
Yes.
and
Yeah.
all that, Brunel. But, he had apparently had a bit of a
Oh yeah.
stroke.
Right. They stage acted that one too.
Well, I researched Brunel, and you'll find what they did is what they do with a lot of their Phoenician bullshit is they attribute it to their people. So when you research Brunel, it was attributed to the Bristol Suspension Bridge. You take
Oh
a
yeah.
look at it. It says it was built by so and so under the instruction of this Brunel company. So he just guessed the name for it, but he didn't actually, you know, build them.
Right.
It was just attributed to him. That's one of
Yeah.
those. I think these were lighted a
All
lot.
those architects. Yeah.
Yeah. Arc lights.
Yeah.
Oh, well,
Architect.
yeah, arc as well. Thing of
Yep.
beauty. What's that? A thing of beauty is a joy forever. Oh, I go with that, definitely. And there's no place like home. Oh, that's an unusual thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
The mud
And the
flooded world. Wow.
and all these stairs and just
Yeah.
I keep going back to this joke that they figure that they love to do stairs,
Wow.
because in the era before elevators, they were building buildings not quite that tall, but
No.
they had water elevators and some amazing things. I think the Flatiron Building is a Flatiron Building. Yeah, it has a early water elevator.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah.
But that's really early, that one. There's no Empire State of
It,
that period.
you know what?
Authorized that.
That picture really is awesome. I
Yeah.
haven't seen this one before,
Oh,
and
it is awesome.
I I studied. Oh wow! Look at the left there.
You
Go.
go right down to a Battery Park as well.
Yeah, but
The old Star
just a
Spot as well, that rotunda of
yeah,
yeah. It's like a
and then
massive
but
building.
above that, this building, that building is still there out to the left, like just north of Battery or just above Battery Park.
This thing here.
All the way over, one more over. Yeah, it's kind of behind it,
Hmm.
to the left there. It's it's against the water pretty much, but
All right.
yeah, that building was still there when the World Trade Center fell. It's
Well,
just
that's where it
amazing to
would be.
visit.
Yeah, by there, isn't it? Or by there somewhere.
The World Trade Center, yeah, went right in about there.
Wow. Just mind blowing. There's this
Yeah.
big thing in the background as well. This chunk here, I'm not sure what that is. Is it going up? It's just how thick
Oh
is that
wow,
thing?
that's yeah. It and when I did a study on Metropolis, and I also did a study on New York City's um, the supposed fictional New York City of various depictions of art that popped up through the years, I found some of these so-called artistic concepts, supposedly by architects, for what New York City could look like in the future. I think
Yeah,
was actually a depiction of the past,
I
and I
know
bet,
what you mean. Yeah,
and
I
the
reckon
buildings looked a lot like this, but it was much more spectacular.
yeah, like we imagine it all to be back in that
Well,
era.
like these pyramid type buildings, like those.
What
There are
is
a
that?
lot of them. That I don't know.
Ah. I
There
thought
are
it was trees, and I thought, well, it can't be that high because it would be up there on the skyscraper. And there's a pyramid, little like, oh, I
Well,
can't
it
tell.
could be the Dennis Arch that got moved. Could be.
Right,
Could be.
it's by a park. Yeah. Oh, what a shot that! It's fantastic that one, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Imagine moving that one of those arches just for the hell of it. The Dennis Arch they moved and yeah.
Yeah. Wow, the world was just fantastic back then compared to now. And they can't build anything like this. They wouldn't even, everything is just decorated. They just leave nothing out. Look at this. The
I
door, the
know.
top of the door is there, UAP. Check that out. There's the top of the door. You have to go.
Billiards. Yeah, sure.
That is just crazy, that one. And always the bank on the corner. The bank, that's part of it, isn't it? Phoenician dialect is the bank, like, river bank or sea bank.
Well, yeah, the every city has this certain layout and they have a narrative for what the things are supposed to be.
Mm.
John Levi showed like I think he picked up on the fact of you always see these when they have the tram lines, They always run and make a bend or something around one of these octagonal like gazebo type buildings, and yeah, that thing. But the octagon is always associated with like the tram lines, and so they had universal layout for these
I agree.
towns. You knew by the shape and type of the building what happened in the building, an institutional type thing that every town would have, and even that was lost. It's so hodgepodge now.
See that picture there?
Yeah, that's Pennsylvania, right?
No, man. That is, believe it or not, Venice Beach in LA. That's what it looked
Oh
like in
yeah.
the
Okay.
1930s. And
Yeah, it
yeah,
was that
the
way.
city's out of this world. If you look into Venice Beach after this, they put all like, it looked like Venice. They had these beautiful buildings and all of these
Yeah.
canal systems, and
And
it's
they
all,
tore that up
they
too. I
tore it up
saw that.
too. They tore it
Hmm.
up too. Let's have a look at this. This is
And
interesting. So
there's
this is the equipment they had, UAP, steam powered.
yes, this
Great.
is the photo I was talking. I had a few of these. This is the construction of one of the London Underground tunnels,
Yeah,
and this construction site is a mess. It's a joke. It's abysmal.
it is a
It's a
bit.
disgrace.
People would die.
Yeah, oh yeah. If
Look at
I
the
was the
shore in
shop
that pier.
foreman,
It's just
I would
every.
I
I've
would
worked on
I
sites.
would kick ass. Like
Yes.
you guys are an embarrassment. You
I
got
know.
to clean this place up and look sharp and get organized. And what the hell is
You
going
know
on?
why it is, don't you? Because you're an American,
It's
you can, and I'm I'm American, and I can't. That's what it
well,
is.
somehow they did.
Yeah, I
Somehow
think
they
so.
did. Yeah, it's
Look at
very
oh right,
it's
UAP.
excavation.
The brick, right, goes under all the muck. If they just backfilled it as they go in that way, coming from this direction, can't really work it out.
Right.
Well, I've got evidence of these piers being put in with no excavation underneath, and I'm just wondering, what's holding, or supporting without piers either side when they dig it out, because the whole thing would collapse in on itself. So
Look at this. Look at
to
this
dig it up,
wheelbarrow. They're walking the plank with the wheelbarrow like it's ridiculous.
it's ridiculous. Look at all this, the mess, and
Yeah.
yeah, people would just definitely die. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm convinced 100% the railways are older. There's enough. I could show you a dozen photographs of railway lines being dug out, a meter deep in mud.
Well, the thing about how deep does it go, that question comes up a lot. And I looked at Manchester
Mm,
in England
mm.
and the bricks that go down, and they go down and down and down 8 levels, and we're talking 20-25 foot high levels in some cases, because there's one room down there in this complex that got unearthed that's the size of a cathedral,
Mm.
and it's just a chamber among hundreds of chambers supposedly made by a society man who just was so kind, because after the Crimean War or something, the local men had nothing to do, so he paid them to move bricks from one side of his property to the other with no purpose. And then he got to a point where he said, well, we could just start digging and start laying bricks and making substructures. And the narrative is absolutely ludicrous. And it just goes on and on. There's no end. They haven't found the end yet. They just excavate, 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 bricks all the way down, all the way across, every direction, pretty much. It's astounding. And I think almost every town has that. I've seen some drawings where they depict like a cross section, and they
Mm.
show bricks all the way down.
Yeah, yeah, I've seen
Like,
that. I've seen that myself. I have, yeah.
yeah.
It's clearly there. It's clearly there already.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
interesting shot. What you're looking at there is the building of the embankment on the Thames in London. But what fascinates me is these buildings, they're all, sort of biblical themes. You see these in some of these old depictions. It looks like Buckingham Palace, but the whole building is up there, really. And this bit is like, for water, underwater, and, they sort of get off and go in this way. But look at that underneath that building. It's like Solomon's Temple. What's
And
with the
and
columns? Very much like Solomon's Temple.
and that's a government building, right?
Yeah, again,
It's
this thing is up, okay, isn't it? And what's with these brickworks in the back with the We
But
flat clear, and it
well,
looks
it's
like
interesting to me that it's a government building and it was built so high up, like you said, as if water. They knew what was coming.
oh,
It's
this
meant
is
to last.
interesting. This is interesting, UAP. Look at the levels. This guy down here, he must be 50 foot above this, below this ground level here. Yet they got these pillars in, and the ground level's this high. So how deep is the grade? I don't understand what's going on here. And look at these things over here, these arches. These look like they're old.
Yeah.
Look how much shit they're digging out of there. It's just, wouldn't they do that before they put? No, that frame is
It's
old.
excavation, yeah.
That frame is.
And these buildings like this, I think they were for dirigibles. Almost every town had them. They used
Yes,
them in the
I feel for sure.
exhibitions.
Yeah, I feel for sure. Definitely, that was what they were doing. These things, a barrage or a balloon or a zeppelin would just fit beautifully into here. Yeah, I definitely think that's part of it. 100%. Otherwise, why
Yeah,
are they identical to them?
and they have them today for the airships that they're making one after the other, but we never see.
Why does that backdrop look fake,
I
UAP?
know. I've looked at this one too. I've looked at all these exact same construction photos. Yeah,
Yeah,
and it's there. I mean that we know that's still there.
St
What is
Paul's.
that
St Paul's
in London?
Cathedral
Yeah,
in London. This is like the Paternoster Square area of London, not far from St Paul's.
it's one of the most magnificent structures even today in
Oh
London, and
God, yeah, but the narrative is just, Sir Christopher Wren, and they'll say this, right? That when Sir Christopher Wren went in the ruined St Paul's, the old one that got burnt down in 1666, that reset. He goes in there and he says he wants to make a plumb line or a string line for his first plan. And he says to his assistant, go get me a stone. The boy come back with a stone and it said resurgi on the stone, which is to rise from the flames, like the phoenix. So they run that narrative with the building of this. And you can go in there today and you can see that stone. It's over a door. It's supposed to be the first stone, of the rebuilding. So that's the narrative. Check this out, right? This is supposed to be rebuilt, right, or a new building. So why is it all covered in like pollution and shit and yours looking like really old when it's a new build? You see
oh
that?
yeah, is that like a St. Pancras or Euston Station or
Well,
something?
they all look pretty much identical, really, but it's a London station for sure. But there's been
Hmm.
no trains coming through here. They're just
Right.
laying this. So what's all of this soot and shit? How long's this thing been up? To me, this superstructure was already in place. Possibly
Mhm.
a lot of the steel. They come in, replace the glass, like they did with the
Yeah,
Crystal Palaces.
it's for
That's
airships.
old. That is old. You can
It's
see that, can you?
definitely for airships.
For
It looks
airships.
exactly like the ones they had for the exhibitions in Chicago and
Oh,
for
yeah.
sure the White City had one of the biggest ones of those.
And it is again, against the ground, apparently.
And right next to those, they had these huge cannons that were
Right.
just absolutely enormous that they credited to a German gun maker. I forgot which one, but it was just a silly story that they made these enormous cannons, brought them all the way to Chicago
Mm.
just to display for no profit or anything. I mean, nobody paid tickets to see them or whatever. It was just an impossible story.
Uh,
There's no background. There's no horizon in that last one.
what's
Like
this? All right, that's the underground again. And these stations just put up all convenient
Kensington.
ready, is it? Is that Metropolitan? But seem, this is this Phoenician thing. Anything with like Atropolis, Apolitan on
Are you
there.
buying that banner that said
No, I have.
Kensington Station? It looks a
No.
little temporary, haphazard kind of like I wonder if it has tacks holding it up or
I don't
scotch
know.
tape and
It can't
glue.
be Kensington, can it? Because Kensington is like, Kensington. It's not all nice there, I don't suppose.
I
So,
like to compare those banners to like the quality of the construction materials. There's the oldie ladder lane on the left.
yeah, yeah.
They gotta have it always.
We're killing it on the ladders tonight, UAP. Anyway,
I get in trouble.
I'm going to record this
I
live.
get
This will be going up tomorrow. So if there are people watching, thanks
I
for
get
watching. Please share this
yeah.
out. And make sure to subscribe to myself and UAP channel. We're doing some more of these UAP, aren't we? And we're going to get people along for some think
Yes,
tanking, get some answers.
that's what we're talking about.
I think it's bearing great fruit. I really do. Look at this fucking tower here. What the hell is that? Wow,
Well,
what would be its purpose outside of technology, really? A looking observation post?
yeah.
And that's the River Fleet. It's under London, but they're supposed to have bricked it over.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, there was a few. Wait, under Fleet Street, this is, and that's
Mm.
only 1854. They're saying this happened, but oh, actually repairing, which is an existing, what they say is Roman sewer. Until it was supposed to be the biggest undergoing in industrial history was the London sewer system, which was because of the big stink that they had to push forwards after that 1854. And
Yeah, and
the
they
math
built it
stuff.
for 6 million capacity, right?
Yeah, man, you got it.
When the population was what, like
Well, now
one?
it's 7 and 7.5, closer to 8 million. I know UAP. It's just crazy. These are good. These ones here these ones of the antique world. It's just you can see the whole thing's been built for giants. There's no doubt about it. Excuse me. Oh, where are they? They are. But there's something off again. It's that same hue. And that one's an impressive monument. Look at the size of the people to that. And what have been his purpose? But exactly the same inside. This.
Is it solid or
Sorry.
is it solid? It's bricks. It looks like on the left.
Well, they're quite large bricks, and these anomalous chimneys or whatever they are. But again, this looks like medieval England. What we find with our castles is this very crude concrete and stone or pebble as backfill. So what I'm trying to imagine is what would the purpose of that building be if you couldn't step inside it? You see what I'm saying? It would just be a big clump with stones all around it. What exactly could that have been when it's backfilled?
Well, I was looking at
Really?
locations for the Tower of Babel, and it was
Oh, I am.
the footers for that thing. If that's what they were way more massive than that. There's these
Something
guys
really.
that they're tiny wankers.
Yeah, what's going on with the Phoenicians? Why haven't they got normal penises like normal men? What's going on? They're all like 3-year-olds or something. Look, what the fuck? That's it there, that tiny little thing there, you had trouble holding that when he was pissing. He just probably
That's
just.
it's a Microsoft, man.
Oh, hang on a minute. But look at this, right? This is what you're getting with the Phoenicians, right? Is
Now
you've
it's a
got a lot of
woman. Yeah.
boobs, but this one's got his hair like a chick. And he's even looking like, well, he's got the nose.
Well, where is this from?
This is just what you find with these photographs under closer examination, right? Is the classical world, okay, which is replicated in World War II by Hitler, which he styles everything on neoclassicalism, and then but it seems like this event, okay, is much more recent than we might imagine. The mud, because Rome's supposed to be a well-established city by the 1860s when these photographs, some of them a little bit later. Look at that though. Look at that, this wall would have carried water. I've seen this monument on many maps and stuff in the ancient world. And
That's definitely Photoshop background there. It's
what
not natural.
is it ever? Look at the cropping. They've messed it right up, UAP.
And there's stuff growing out of the top, so that's like antediluvian, in my opinion. It's really, really old, huge,
Oh,
buried. Yeah,
look at that ivy
yeah.
stuff there. It's just
Now these depictions, like the one you just showed with like the angelic beings and the kind of androgynous.
you'll see a lot of that in these this collection is absolutely superb. It's the earliest I can find. I collect Rome photos. I haven't seen earlier than these.
I want to take a minute and read something that I got from an architect who
Cool.
mailed me, and I won't say his name because I don't know if it's okay to do that. But I'll just kind of share kind of his sentiments, paraphrase here, where he did research over the years, and he said that looking at like the books about architecture that are dated with the I, like as in I 540,
right.
he found some detailed cross sections through columns and pedestals revealing their inner workings to contain mostly water-driven gears to rotate statues to show time, calendar dates, and other information.
Is that so?
Mm-hmm. So those haphazard bricks and things that you found in those are filler for what they took out that actually filled those finely made columns. That's what that's telling me. And then he said some of these books were also surveys of ancient biblical cities that were thought to be long gone, but it's included right in there.
Got you.
So they somehow knew about it because it's not that old, you know.
Mm.
Some books documented so-called resets told by survivors, mostly about floods. And I guess that's all that he says there. So yeah, it's pretty validating. I'm gonna continue the conversation about these things.
Right, so yeah, I've spoke to a lot of architects. I know quite a few established architects who are completely on board with Mudflood and everything we've discovered. No problem at all. I've spoken to architects out there in the world. One of them was got rather embarrassed. I said, well, what would be the sense of having you know, the bottom story below ground level and, you know, top heavy buildings, etc., and stairs in the air in cold countries? What would be the sense? He said, oh, I think it was in vogue at the time when they built them. In vogue? I think you're right about the arches. I just dawned on me, you know, they got rooms inside them, okay? So like offices. So imagine you come through, you're an army, maybe you're magnetized or something from using electromagnetic weapons or something. What if the columns, because maybe they were replaced after, or the covers or something, maybe there was something around this, some maybe electrum or some sort of covering. Maybe they could demagnetize. Maybe it was even for plague, for spraying, like in the modern day. Something like that, because I think they could have used this fake narrative many times in the past, really, you know, to lock down population, no problem.
Well, a lot of people believe that you have these various, like, you know, I'm not saying that I believe it, but it just kind of goes along with it with these electrical living beings. Some call them entities that attach to people.
Yeah.
And that type of stuff, and maybe there's a way to cleanse that. Who knows? I mean,
Look,
everything's on the table.
I think anyone's prone to it, and it's the same with illness. I think illness and disease is that. I think it's that. It's like, call them what you want, archons. I call them parasites, or parasites, or whatever you want, right? Demons that mess with your psyche, okay? If you're on a lower vibrational experience, you're going to get it all the more. If you're drinking alcohol quite a bit, maybe smoking cigarettes with it, that's a depressant. Anything that will put you on a depressant sort of vibration, you will be subject to more attacks from demonic entities. Yeah. And the only way to clear that is basically just get clear, realize what it is, and cancel it out, and it goes away. You can identify it. You can identify it. So you know, I'm wondering where it's coming from. It just slings out of the ether. Some of it's absolute nonsense.
There's some stuff I've found with that because I don't hold back. I study everything. So I've been studying astrology, and I learned about like the tables of Toledo.
Right.
And they had these astrological sciences that was a very legitimate science and should still be, but thousands of years old, very refined, and it had it down to such predictive ability. It's nothing like what they tell you, like the fortune telling and this will happen, this type of stuff. It's proclivities, it's humors, they called it. And so different days, depending on the astrological charts, you're going to have proclivity for one thing or the other. And even during different times of the day, you're going to have various proclivities. And so in these towns, they had these devices like the fountains, oftentimes, those huge fountains. They weren't just decorative, they were telling the townspeople what the astrological charts were predicting for that particular day. So then when they would go there to get water in the morning, because they had kind of a rustic lifestyle, I think, when it was communal, and they would go and meet each other at the, like in the Bible, like the meeting at the well. Well, it'd be like the fountain. And I have a mind that the biblical times people were like about 12 to 15 feet tall, because it's in so many depictions, and those fountains match that kind of stature. And so the woman at the well and all that stuff, it's not necessarily a well, it's more like just a water fountain. But not only, they're not just dumb, like getting the water and they're only thinking about that. This whole water fountain had lights and colors, maybe music. It had arms, gears, and things that told you not only the time, all the things that like the astrolabe will tell you, but it tells you the various astrological predictions. It was also programmable, it said, what I was reading. And at different various times of the day, like how the Muslims pray at different times of the day.
Yeah, sure.
These different times of the day like that, you're going to have a shift of one proclivity or another. It also, depending a lot on that particular day in astrology. And this would affect their planning, because they wanted things so perfect that they would factor in all of these things. It was so much better. Like, we watch this fake news, not we, but and it doesn't help you in your day. But what they did when they got their news, it was telling them, that this planet is placed in this constellation right here, and so at this time of day would be a good time to do this or that. And so that the tables of Toledo are kind of probably the best one place where a lot of that was captured, but it was far, far more immense in terms of a body of knowledge than that represents. But that's what I think a lot of those clocks were. It's also having to do with the atmospheric electricity, because the tides are not just ocean water, but there are electrical tides.
They could have been. They could have been. They could have been astronomical clocks, because look at that one in Czechoslovakia, that double one. Have you seen it on that?
Yeah, that's extremely
mind blower.
It's got all kinds of information. It's almost like an astrolabe.
It's like an astrolabe. It's a bit like an Antikythera device, if you like. It's this, it's complicated. It covers a lot. Yeah. So I thought about that. I think all the clocks. Some of them, I know it sounds crazy, but there's a clock in Prague as well, on a synagogue, actually. It made it to the book. It goes in reverse. They can tell a time equally in reverse at some period. So just
Strasbourg has
one. Whether they actually, I know it just sounds crazy. I know it does, but with these, I posted this a couple of days ago. If I still got it, I'm sure somewhere. It's basically no, I lost it. It was the Spanish, the exposition in Paris, okay, and they had it's exhibits, isn't it? It's exhibits, yes. So they got showing you,
say.
Yeah, but they're showing you like entire. It's set up like a mall for a start off, right? Which is just what's going on. Like, are they selling this stuff? No, it's just to look at. So one thing shows you a load of, excuse me, where is it? Paris. A load of hairbrushes, what have you. But one place shows you, where's my albums? Shows you clocks. A whole, there you are, there they are. A whole thing full of clocks. And I'm wondering whether they introduced time at this period. Check this out. What do you make of that, UAP? This is from the Great Expositions, of Paris. What do you think about that?
Well, that's a battery or something, yeah. It's a battery bank to me.
It's got 4 angels or 4 things on it that could be magnets. maybe reverse polarity. This thing looks a bit like a Van de Graaff generator, and it's definitely feeding something down into these cells. I would say that is an energy gatherer that could have been on the top of a spire, because it's the shape of a spire, and down in the spire where it levels out, it could have been these, which were collected.
Yes.
Yeah.
The spheres are extremely telling.
Yeah.
So I found this book. Right, a sub sent it to me. It's a book written in the 1880s. I think it was 1888, and it was about atmospheric electricity.
Yeah.
And they talked about the use of a sphere to store the electrical energy that comes in and out in the tides. And that's where I was learning about, the electrical tides. So because each locale has a positive, usually it's a positive bias to the air. It shifts negative right around thunderstorms, and then I think it does something like that when there's an eclipse. But
yeah, I'd see there was an interaction between that and
yeah, and so there's like a daily, like a normal shift, like a tide, but then also other things affecting it. The moon does.
Thinking.
Yeah, that looks like one. Mm-hmm.
No, I'm just wondering. We've wondered about ships, haven't we, UAP? And they're just in this great exhibition of Paris. They're displaying a ship's mast, which looks like your technology on the top. So
Well, have you seen like ones that just are very much apparently electric ships?
I have, indeed, I have.
And they have the sails. They don't have their sails
Oh,
up,
no,
but they're trolling just like today. They troll in the harbor with their secondary motor or whatever it is, and they're not rowing and their sails aren't up, but they maneuver. Like, how would they have done it? Like, does anybody ask the question? How did they maneuver in
I
the
know.
harbors? Because you put up sail in the harbor and you're asking for trouble.
Tugs. There it is, and it's set up. So.
Oh wow. Yeah.
An energy gatherer of sorts.
It's battery charger.
There. Yeah, it's battery charger, isn't it? Because this is no different to a cells on a battery, is it really? And
No. And what the batteries look like to me, because all this stuff is so recent, I recognize those as what we were told were milk jugs.
yeah. Milk jazz. Maybe they were reused as well. This one's a mind blower.
Yeah, because you can find everything today. Like these glass insulators are everywhere.
Oh, for sure, they're just everywhere. But what we can find, right, was this collection of this great exposition, right? Okay, the 1889 one, is they want us to believe that somebody, in a bird's eye perspective, on every photograph, took the time to draw all of that with changing light, which I got told by an artist would probably take a week just to do this one picture, right? When they could have took a photograph, no problem, and captured the whole thing in one go. Why? Is that evidence? Pencil drawings? And how are they doing it? It's just the effort. It's some other technology. It has to be, we're just having a wool pull over our eyes on a monumental scale about the past. And which I feel is going on.
Yeah, and a similar photo, like an actual photo from the Chicago White City 1893 exhibition.
Yeah.
They show the same thing, and you know what I saw at the top was plastic sheeting, like pinned up to the roof because the ceiling was leaking because it's an old building.
Yeah, leaky roof. And it destroyed all of the exposition of Chicago and St. Louis and made excuses for any buildings that are left. And there's only a few, rotundas and stuff. And they all spoil like the ancient world and better architecture. So this is our evidence that this thing is actually from that period, is they can take photographs. They'll hire or commission an artist to sit there and draw all this instead of taking a photograph. And there are one or two, and they look weird as well. They look like they are, if that's a photograph, is it? Difficult to determine. Again, is that a pencil drawing? How is that done? And this is the place for clocks. It's almost as if like everything's about time, and they got this spring and this mechanism you keep seeing with their depictions. What if the people came up They show them how the new world is, who's ruling, and the Phoenicians and everything else, and their technology. Look at this one. What do you reckon that does, UAP? It's a pantograph generator there, and they got 4 arrays pointing out like you would on 5G in the modern day.
And it exactly matches like a magnetic dipole. Well, that looks like something you'd see in a church there at the top.
For sure. For sure, but it's got 4 angels, so, you know, imagine they was maybe magnetic opposites. If this was charged in the middle, it could cause a toroidal.
And it's funny too, because it also matches our realm, because you have the 4 corners of the Earth.
Yeah, microcosm.
The dome.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I agree completely. That's exactly what they did. They used the electromagnetic structure of this place and they replicated it on the small. That's what Tesla did.
Yep.
Tesla took it.
It only has 4 pillars, though, but not 5. But yeah.
Yeah. So that's not a photograph, right? It's just, if that is a photograph, what you find is this is like a mall, and it's exhibits. They're not to buy, but it's everything that you need. Why would you need to go and look at maybe 100 hairbrushes?
It's almost like it's a test. They take the absolute advances of a previous civilization that just got times up, wiped out.
Yes.
And they take the spoils of it and they display it to
Isn't
all
it
these.
Ever exactly
It's like a video game. Here's your training course. Boom, boom, boom. This is what's possible. Now go. And then people have their horses and their buggies, and they have to build their way back up.
Yeah. Well, this happened in World War II. People were given mansion houses as long as they didn't ask what happened to the previous occupants. People were happy to take them. I think with this culture just showing up in such a manner, and it's this thing here ready, you know, they could have like just introduced time. You know, this thing just doesn't feel like, now it's starting to feel like we're looking at somewhere else. You know, the evidence is not there. They're showing us pencil drawings for something. There's, at this period, 1889, photographs been around over 40 years, but they can't manage to show us the first greatest accomplishment of the British Empire, which was his first exposition in the world. Right. Does that make sense? They would have photographed. They would have photographed it.
Yeah, they would. They were too busy doing portraits with phony backdrops.
They like sort of introduce each country as well, because that's what I noticed. Is it's like almost as if, you know, they have the United States, they'll have another country next door. So you go in and you see there's a whole hall telling you what the United States is about. So they're like, it's sort of like an education. You know, this is the world, this is the globe, because this is included expositions as well. I noticed time, countries, who's in power. Don't touch upon too many religious concepts in these. I've noticed that it's full Phoenician and tech, high tech. Like
that does match the realm too. It's amazing.
Isn't that amazing?
And the domes, I haven't figured it out totally, but there is a multifaceted function to the domes.
I agree with that.
That I know, like the channel Global Vision, he looked into it, trying to figure it out. What he's trying to do is decipher the symbology that they have on the outsides of the buildings, because they match worldwide. They match certain shapes and just so-called arbitrary aesthetics, like your architect friend said, that they just fancied doing it at the time. And there's no, oh, that's San Francisco, isn't it?
Yeah, with that little sphere on top. They've done the planisphere in Paris. They've done one in the New York later expo, which I think you can visit. It's just crazy big scale globes, you know. But look, how do you do that then, UAP? From that perspective, so it's bird's eye again. So it's from the imagination, and it's changing light. It's an existing place which is supposed to look like this. Yeah, you can go. The perspective is, you know, just outstanding.
And you can see on the left and right, those are spiral staircases that have been removed and blocked off.
This?
Yeah.
Yeah, they were.
And it's absolutely for giants. The railing is.
You see the circle, can you? You know what would be so that empty chamber is just to stick a lantern in to do absolutely frig all, and they got a big block in front of it to block it off where it was.
Right.
Nice.
You know, but it's obviously a spiral staircase, and the people who occupied this building were probably much larger, unless it was just a.
If it was an elevator, taking up that floor, giants.
Yeah, probably. I mean, yeah, that's a great point because they never do have the stairs. I've been looking for the
No, I
stairs,
know.
but no,
There's a few.
they had levitation or something. They would just do it
Oh,
based on their tech. And so I don't know. Maybe they don't even have moving mechanical parts. It could have been like you see in video games. You just go into this spot and you just levitate up, and then you just kind of
yeah.
walk off. Something like that. Because that's all I ever see in these older buildings. There's no stairs in place. It's like you said, an
Well,
empty
I think
shell.
you're onto something because Hermes, like he's supposed to be the father of alchemy, and Hermes Trismegistus and everything. And he turns up Phoenician, and he's got like this electromagnetic tech. Okay, the Casus, but he wears a pair of wing boots, which enables him to fly. Two wings open, so the charge is active. So they're an analogy for electromagnetic
Yeah.
levitation. I think these wing boots are to do with levitation. I really do. And I think it's something they've done 100%, no doubt about it. We know this is a thing anyway, because the Lamas of High Tibet can do this sort of thing. The that is religious. So they introduce you to Christianity, look. And then it goes
Well,
up.
something that Global Vision noticed, he pointed out, you see it here, is that when they have a dome electrical type structure like that, they
Yeah.
always put something in the center. They do not want you standing in the center of that. And
Oh,
they
I see
block
what
you
you mean.
100%.
Yeah.
And he believes that something can happen. Maybe something happens, that you feel something when you do stand in the center, and they block you all the time.
Wow. I can see that. That's interesting. I never knew that.
And
Wow.
who knows what happens to you when you stand in the center of that? I
Well,
mean,
somebody,
like we
I
talked
should
about electrical
have to
entity
grab him at
things and
some
things like that.
stage.
Who knows?
I'll have to grab Global Vision at some stage, pick his brains, see what's happening.
Yeah, he's brilliant.
Yeah, somebody's mentioned it last night. Said, "Oh, I think I will."
Yeah, he got onto cannons first. I just looking at cannons, they're total bullcrap. He's
Yeah, man.
the one that did that.
But there's the
Yeah,
power in a lighthouse.
and look, why did they have the ceiling so high? I mean,
But it's ridiculous, isn't it? This thing's got like trains apparently that float in the air for people to go. See this platform here?
oh,
Apparently, yeah, this is in the sky.
like that's the gantry. Yeah.
Yeah, and it takes you over the exposition so you can look at it all from the air. See it here? It's ridiculous. It's
Well,
on rail.
they had electric boats.
How's that running then? It's not on cables, is it?
It's the gantry running on the rails, right?
Yeah, and they just go over the entire exposition in the air.
But that's obviously it was some kind of huge like assembly facility, and that gantry was just left over. I think
Huh.
it's not to ride people. That's
It was part
something
of what
else.
was in there, the technology, isn't it? And it's just like, oh,
Yeah,
that's good leftover. We'll stick some people on there because it's a ride or an
it's a
attraction.
ride.
Yeah, I can see that.
They had an elevator in one that just went up and back down. They said it was the first Otis elevator or something like that,
Oh
and it
yeah,
was just a demonstration.
yeah, I've seen that about the Otis. I'm not buying any of that. I'm not buying the narrative for elevators. Full stop. So we're still none closer to the conclusion, right? These giant Tatarian houses were built for, maybe servants upstairs, smaller stairs, like you mentioned, and the people who own the place, upstairs and downstairs. There used to be a program in Britain about it all. Okay, so it was the elites and their servants. These massive houses. Yet, if you want to go to the toilet, you have to, light a lantern. Apparently, go to the end of your garden in the freezing cold in Britain and go to a toilet in a wooden shed. Now, we had these right the way up to the modern day. I mean, I was working on a building site 20 years ago where this old guy had come up his back door, walked down his path, leave the door open on his little green hut, and read the newspaper and talk to us on the scaffold while he was going to the toilet. These things were around recently in my lifetime. I just find it fascinating that They didn't seem to be able to manage a toilet at that period. Were the original occupants even eating?
Well, the place I found something like that, it's kind of like a communal thing again, and they refer to them as like bathhouses, but I think they were just like large public restrooms, gathering places. Yes, you could take baths there and everything, and people lived in a much more peaceful communal sense, and they gathered and did things as a community all the time.
Yeah, agreed.
And that lends to this notion of uh, the millennial reign of Christ with the peaceful period of serenity and you know, I don't know if they tried to explain it off as like the Pax Romana, but you have people in glorified bodies, something like 22 feet tall, and they're depicted all the time. The gorgeous women, the muscular patriarchal men with the kick-ass long beards and all that type of stuff, and they're just living it up with their white sheets and all their like grapes and all that stuff. You know, it's like that's the millennial reign of Christ, and they're assisted by angels with swords that do all of the reining in of the the riffraff and that type of thing. So
I think something like that. Yeah, I do. But it's funny how the predictive programmers of this realm, like contemporary music, keep reminding us like there seems to be the 1,000 years. You got Hitler. He wants to. He's apparently a megalomaniac, and he wants to have the Third Reich to last for 1,000 years. Well, why not 2,000, Hitler? Isn't there 2,000 years? And then like Freddie Mercury, when it's a kind of magic. To reign for 1,000 years. There's so many, in these songs where they tell you that it only seems to be 1,000 years. But, people will relate that to the 1,000 years of Christ, won't they? But it's funny that they do tell us this.
Yeah.
Like, a good track for the terrifying truth of it all and everything that's going on here is Under Pressure by Queen. That's everything in there.
Oh really?
Oh, everything. Just listen to it. Gives me shivers.
Yeah.
Gives me shivers.
Really?
Hearing some close friends hearing screaming, "Let me out," because they know they're in a room. Yeah. And this is our last dance, our last shot of peace. And they're telling you, all right, maybe it was in Live Aid in the 1984 or 85 or whatever it was, but I think that they were doing it now, laying down. So it's in your consciousness. So this stuff comes along, you just recognize it. This is unusual. See this picture here? I found a modern artist who was depicting FEMA camps and some sort of epidemic. I collected a few of them. People are put in boxes in these huge FEMA camps and these tents. You see them? And that was his theme. That was his theme. The artist was huge FEMA camps in docksites and stuff. Really sinister.
And they're always by rail lines, right? I'm telling you, like if you go back and look, there's going to be a rail line somewhere, I think.
Oh, there it is for sure.
Yeah, that's
The ancient world. That's no longer ago in my mind. This ancient world, this classical world, and why we're looking at all the photographs from the 1850s, and it looks like it's recent. It looks like it's fabricated. It looks like film sets. Is really creepy and sinister. Why they're blocking out the backgrounds. Why they're altering all of the history for us. And it's for us, UAP, because there's not too many people, apart from the people in this field, who were looking at this stuff in the first place. You and me? So,
yeah.
It's like two timelines, or that it's just not even there. Something else has happened. If you think of it like in a virtual reality sense, I suppose it would make a little bit more sense. But yeah, it's just really, really, look at that. That's San Francisco. That's Chicago, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It looks like Sam. Wow, boy, I got to think for a second here.
I'm not sure either. Isn't that Sears Tower? No.
No.
No. No, that could be LA. No, it's
You
not.
got like a pyramidal building. It looks like yeah, that circular building. It looks
Wow.
like that could be LA. I've
Yeah, it
never
could
seen
be.
this before.
Not me. I can't. I just first time I started, I don't even know I stumbled upon it. I've saved it at some stage, but wow, look at that. Do you
Yeah,
think it
and
looked like that in the past? I think this is just the modern day replacement, and the infrastructure and everything was already
well,
there. I think.
I couldn't find the picture I told you I was going to
There it
send you.
is.
I deleted it.
Wow.
Oh, well, I was gonna the one I told you that would blow your mind. I'll have to find it, but I can tell you about it. Yeah, that clock.
I know.
Wow.
Fancy that showing up. We just talked about it.
Yeah.
Look at that.
And you got the astrological symbols there, see? And yeah, yeah. But the picture I was going to send you is it's an old artistic depiction about witches, and
Oh,
it shows these male witches or wizards um, on in a group of I think three off to the side, and they're casting their spells. And there's a city that is absolutely in flames, crumbling, an unnatural fire. And it absolutely
heat.
looked like what we see all over the place.
Yeah.
It was
Look at this.
witches.
Does
Oh
that look like
yeah,
a vitrified statue or not?
yeah. It blew my mind when I looked at these, and you
Oh,
see where pieces fell off recently, and it shows the substructure of the anatomical structure
yeah.
of a person. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just it's
That's
like,
good.
oh, did they build it that way? No, it's
That's
it's
Baalbek.
it seems
Ridiculous.
like we keep getting smaller each
Yeah.
time.
Well, they say Baalbek was built by like Cain. He's a giant and no problem whatsoever. But look at the size of, there's people compared to that. That's one stone there, that one stone. It's
Yeah,
obvious humans didn't put that in place. It's just, wow. Yeah,
yeah,
man. We were
and
just so much bigger.
yeah,
That beautiful place.
yeah.
And
These places out in the middle of nowhere.
oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
The old world still there. Haven't got rid of it all, but they have had a good campaign in trying to get rid of it. Oh, look, that's supposed to be 2,000 years old, and it's still there in situ.
One of my favorite little video
Yes.
clips is them trying to demolish one of these things, and they're swinging a wrecking ball against it, and it just bounces off.
Yeah, yeah, I know. This is what they're like. The narrative for the demolition of the Waldorf Astoria, so they could build, the statue, the Empire State Building on its site. Yeah, they said that he had to raise another 500,000 or something because the thing was so solid and full of wires, and that he's never encountered anything like it. They couldn't take it down. They couldn't take
Yeah,
the Waldorf Astoria down. Look at
yeah.
that. I couldn't even imagine what that is. It's been there a while. Is all I can say.
Well, the channel Wise Up, he does a good job figuring
Oh,
out what those things are. It's great.
he does like sort of, I suppose, antediluvian, and he does a brilliant job at it. Yeah,
Yeah.
identifying these things. There's
Well,
the
and he matches them up, the structures, some of these, those things you find with the kind of squared off pattern of like these different, like
oh,
it's like a waffle iron shape, and it's just huge, and it's just buried in the ground. Nobody knows what it is. He matches it up to these like brackets and things used for attaching I-beams, and these structures were enormous, and it's something that was once metal, and then it like here, some of those things were obviously metal because they still have the rust in the stone. Yeah, like this type of thing.
mm,
It's a strengthening ribs on a formed structure. Usually, it's going to be something like metal. It's not stone. It got replaced by minerals when it was underwater,
interesting.
antediluvian.
Mm.
And it was amazing. One thing he found, it was a room in underground in Egypt that's like one of these supposed tombs. He found it had conduit, light switches, and then it had one of these big basins, and the basin had water jets. It was a hot tub, a huge hot
Wow.
tub. And it had a switch, like an electrical line running to like a wall switch. And it was all solid stone, right? Because it's, it's mineralized from being buried,
Wow. Yeah, well, them changes definitely take place a lot quicker than we actually think, a lot of this, with the science, for they always add longevity to everything, don't they? Or
Yeah.
distance to stars, or the longevity of everything, with evolutionary bullshit, and that can't even be proved, or any reality to it whatsoever. So yeah, I find that everything's in small pockets of time, and when you look out of the window at that pocket of time, all you see is catastrophe and reset, and they play it again and again.
Right.
These are crazy. These are in Carnac in northern France, and they're just thousands and thousands of stones which look from above like iron filings subject to some electromagnetics or some magnetics. You know when you throw iron filings down?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they follow like a pattern.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah, they follow patterns for sure. There's one of these mainstreamy guys, that Charles Ress, he's on Ancient Aliens and stuff, and he says they correlate to things above in the sky and also with ancient ley lines, etc. So there's a pyramid there in America. You get them like everywhere. This is 1880s and it's a step pyramid, but it's ancient, it's solidified.
Yeah.
Whatever happened to it? It happened to everywhere. These resets happen, plane wide. I just showed the Moe in Easter Island, and they're up to their necks in mud, and the rest of the body's below ground level. Something covered them in mud.
Yeah, and there's a group of elite people who've known all along of this stuff, and I have a trick to find these things. And when you mentioned ancient photographs, I found there's a high interest in certain old photographs. So I found these auctions, and I look at what they're paying money for. I looked at past sales, and I found, like you said, photographs that seemingly wouldn't be worth much, but the subject matter based on what we look at is very interesting, and it's very telling. I found photos of medieval people, and some of them just seemed like portraits of famous figures that
Yes.
they can always say that, oh well, this is just an actor who played that role, uh, but they took the portrait of the actor, but the actor isn't known.
Oh,
And
look,
it's,
there's that thing.
oh, there it is. Yeah, the Electric Knight.
Yeah. They got like little the Faraday shirts on as well, or little, to cover them up.
Yeah, it's like
Exactly.
fencing when they cover themselves with these electrical type things, and
Yeah.
but if you look, those are giants, and the people with the top hats watching uh, are like the wee people like us.
That's magged in. I've done a screenshot, but you see that on the bigger picture. Endless vitrification of the old world. Tartaria. Check this out.
It's in San Francisco,
I think
probably.
this one is the releveling, possibly. Well, they've done these relevelings to many cities, but I think this one is possibly Seattle. They
Uh-huh.
did it to Seattle, St. Louis, Kansas City. That was called Mound City when they moved there, but they were really pyramids. They did it in Boston. They leveled Bunker Hill. There was a monument on top, which doesn't fit for the longevity of how long the place been there. It's just the ancient world, Look at this. Look at this. This is crazy. Wow.
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 That rainstorm would wreak havoc on that.
They're just removing mud, aren't they, really? It even makes you ask, why are they have to do it so deep? Where are they, what is their purpose? Why can't they just do it on ground level? Are you with me? It's just,
Yeah.
why are they digging down there? Makes no sense whatsoever. Now, there's a nice evidence of vitrification or some sort of heat. Seems to be later, but this thing here is just literally bubbled. That much intense heat has hit it.
Yeah.
Possibly plasma discharge, possibly coming in from this direction, taking out what was here before.
Wow. And I see some, I mean, do you see anything in that stone? Like,
What do you mean?
I don't know. It's sometimes I just,
Hmm,
it wouldn't naturally take that shape, right?
no.
That makes me think, like, look at that, like a creature or something. If it's like a face or a horse hoof or something at the bottom, I don't know.
Oh,
And it
I
could
get
just
you. I
be,
get you. Yeah, 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 yeah,
it
yeah.
could just be like the decoration of the building or something, but it's like something got like blasted against it and just fused into it.
I
I
can see
don't
what you're
know.
saying. Yeah, 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 yeah. I can see what you're saying.
And if you do chemical analysis on these things, what
Oh,
looks like rust is rust. What looks like bone
yes,
is bone.
I
It's got the
agree.
calcium, it's got all the stuff.
Yeah, it's got the iron oxide or the calcite. Yeah, I agree completely. Look at that in the woods. From where, I wonder. Spooky.
Mhm.
You get a lot of them going underground all over the world.
Oh,
Bunkers,
these
out.
battlements and things. Yeah, they make them up to defend a harbor. They have this
Yeah,
network of tunnels. They're never used. Just ridiculous.
check that thing out. I wonder what that
Oh,
is.
gravestones. My gosh, to see that this place is not like, if you look at gravestones, the absolute
You did them. That's the tunnels in Liverpool, the Williamson tunnels.
ye- oh yes, Liverpool, that's it. I said
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Manchester. Yeah, I did a video on those. That's what I was
Yeah, I
talking
know it
about,
is.
all the
Good video.
brick.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh-huh.
brilliant. Yeah, that's a definite bullshit narrative that Williamson building these, and they are so vast. I talked about these, and a girl from Liverpool contacted me. She was in my comment. She said, I work there. She said she takes
Oh,
photograms and that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. She was going to take photos, but it didn't arrive. I was like, it's just the scale and, the excuse for why he would build it. To me, it's like just an underground
I,
civilization.
I hope it's not the one I kind of barbed a little bit
I'm not
because she
sure.
was
It was a few
speaking the
years ago. It
narrative.
was a couple of years ago. It was
Well, I
2017.
mean nothing by it. It's
Yeah,
just,
it is.
I'm going to barb anybody who does the narrative. Yes, the double tunnel, and that's
There
the
he is.
ventilation, and you have the actual. Oh yeah, always
Williamson.
with the top hat,
Exactly.
right?
God, they just it's Masonic symbology, and there's something else going on the top at that space in top. We thought, is it ice? Does that help you think? But it could be something to do with the conditions.
Or
I can't
COVID,
help thinking,
or some device that they use that they hide. Who
or
knows?
some device that they hide. Definitely, because it's
Oh
only the people in power that have them, haven't they?
yeah,
Everyone's got a flat cap,
right.
a shitty flat cap,
Yeah, the bowlers and whatever else.
There's
And
that
these
big hill.
wheels, they always have those.
Uh,
Invent.
1893. Yeah, but what? Imagine this, right? They look exactly like railway carriages, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
Yeah. What if it was
Uh,
this thing gets completely destroyed, right? This entire area. I got a photograph of this, right, in Chicago, and basically all you see is about this much of the wheel existing. The rest disappears, including the metal. It's just the strangest thing. And the
hmm.
whole site is just like Hiroshima. There's nothing existing at this site during this fire. But like they look like, imagine a train coming in maybe and lifting it up and taking them round. They just
Well,
look so much like railway carriages, don't they? It's amazing.
well, they had huge equipment. I saw with these things, they have these tramways that unload the passengers at the expositions.
Hmm.
I found
Yeah.
similar things. These battlements I just talked about in the harbors have these small tunnels. Those, to me, were like not just seaports, but also airports, because some of them are extremely elevated
Mm.
for the airships. And they would take the luggage of the passengers arriving in the city and they'd put them on these moving like luggage transport systems like we have in the airports for baggage claim.
Yeah.
And that's what they were. They wouldn't carry people necessarily because people were larger, I think, but they carried their bags. And I saw like in New Zealand, looking at the different harbors, that there was no reason they would make this huge network of tunnels to so-called like defend the city from the Germans or whatever the story
And it makes no
was.
sense.
Yeah, but it would, if you have an airship like a dirigible, you're arriving in Auckland or something, you're going to land, yeah, near the at the peak near the waters up on the cliff, and then the passengers are going to disembark and put their bags somewhere, and that They just move them automatically.
Yeah, the pavements are moving pretty hot as well in Paris, aren't they? You know, the moving sidewalks.
Yeah, and they never last. They never work. They're so they're so high tech, really, that we don't even really make use of anything like that now. These moving walkways in some airports, I guess, but they had graduated speeds. The one in New York had something like 4 or 5 different speed graduations. So by the time you got to the fast track, you were really moving. They had no use for the other modes of transport. You could move just by walking, and it's with anything. You could be on a horse, you could have a huge cart or something. It didn't matter. It's extremely efficient, convenient, and all purpose. It was all torn up, of course.
In this one?
Mummy.
Don't know, it's got like a massive face on it. It's a horrible thing. Don't know what it
What is that?
Yeah.
It's probably a hoax.
Actually, there's many of them. The Cardiff Giant was proved to be apparently a hoax. I posted about that. The Cardiff Giant, you heard about that in North State, New York State?
Yeah, that was
fake backdrop again.
Oh yeah.
And you know, like everything, you always find this with Egypt in all these old photographs, 1800s, is there's a sort of damp line on the, Karnak. You find it as well. Everything is defaced and smashed off. The height of civilization. You know, this is Rome Baths, the Bath in Britain. You know, the city Bath.
Yeah.
It's complete ruin in this photograph. In the modern day, you can walk around here and visit it, and it looks all mint. But you know, I think this is like the time, just not long after when that event happened. It's just, you know, so recent, 1800s apparently. You know, there's a sidewalk right down below ground level.
Yeah, they always they're doubled up.
Yeah. So I'm gonna stop sharing for a bit. UAP. I'm gonna have to probably pack it in soon because of my ridiculous pointer. So getting off at 3 o'clock here.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, it's gonna wrap it up. It was good.